Ever since Donald Trump vowed to end birthright citizenship for the children of many immigrants, one question has loomed. How could the executive branch possibly implement such a sweeping rollback of constitutional rights? The United States has granted birthright citizenship to virtually all children born on its soil since 1868, when the 14th Amendment enshrined that guarantee into law. What would it look like for the government to abruptly change course, adopting a radically different system of citizenship through presidential decree? How could the Trump administration identify the roughly 150,000 babies born each year who would no longer receive their fundamental right of citizenship? What penalty would it impose on these infants, some of whom would be rendered literally stateless? For months, federal courts blocked the Trump administration from developing any such plans, finding the executive order unconstitutional from top to bottom. In June, however, the Supreme Court expressly permitted the government to begin developing and issuing public guidance about the executive's plans to implement Trump's order. Acting on that decision, an immigration agency released the first stage of its implementation plan last Friday. It shocks the conscience. In dry, bureaucratic language, the memo outlines a plan to revoke citizenship from the children of both immigrants who lack permanent legal status and many lawful residents, including visa holders, dreamers, and asylum seekers. It envisions intrusive federal review of parents' papers, quite possibly in the hospital, before or shortly after birth, to gauge the newborn's legal status. And it paves the way for people who spend their entire lives in the United States to be deported to countries in which they've never stepped foot, or to be condemned to the limbo of statelessness. To this administration, inflicting these unconstitutional harms isn't a mere byproduct of the plan, it's the whole point. In its plan, USCIS acknowledged that the federal judge's injunction, separate from the case that was litigated at the Supreme Court and which the Trump administration won last month, currently bars the government from taking away anyone's birthright citizenship. But the agency is preparing to implement the executive order in the event that it is permitted to go into effect, and laid out guidance to address legal questions so it can spring into action as soon as the courts allow it. To that end, USCIS declared flatly that the children of immigrants who were unlawfully present will no longer be U.S. citizens at birth. They will instead inherit the status of their parents, rendering them detainable and deportable as infants throughout their lives. There is no indication that the government will provide some grace period before snatching up and imprisoning this new underclass of non-citizen babies. They are apparently subject to arrest from the moment of birth. The Trump administration has already facilitated such neonatal arrests by repealing a 2011 rule that prohibited ICE enforcement in and around hospitals. Yeah, that seems like a good rule. It seems like a problem if you have ICE agents around hospitals, right? You can't have people, whether they're here illegally or not, afraid to go get medical care because they might get deported. That's very dangerous. Combined with this new guidance, plus a vast expansion of its budget, Immigration and Customs Enforcement could send agents to determine proof of legal status from postpartum mothers and fathers. If they failed to produce the necessary paperwork, ICE could arrest the entire family, including the baby, whom agents could attempt to separate from her parents. The Trump administration has quietly reintroduced a new form of family separation policies and rolled back protections for minors. An American-born child with previously guaranteed citizenship under the 14th Amendment would be treated no differently than a non-citizen apprehended at the border. But this is what Trump said, right? You gotta keep out the criminals, the rapists, the murderers, the toddlers, the newborns, the teeny tiny babies who can't do anything on their own. These are the people who gotta keep out: the murderers, rapists, the infants, the toddlers, all of them. They're all dangerous. I mean, of course, these toddlers are dangerous. We gotta get them out, guys. The next section of the memo explains how the administration plans to deny citizenship to children born in the United States to parents who have lawful but temporary presence here. Trump's order itself clarifies that kids whose parents have a student, work, or tourist visa would no longer be eligible for citizenship. But USCIS went much further, laying out a dozen other categories of immigrants whose offspring would be ensnared by the policy, even though their parents reside in the country legally. Its list includes immigrants who have received withholding of removal under the Convention Against Torture, immigrants granted temporary protected status, and dreamers protected by DACA. The agency left no stone unturned. It even declared that children of Micronesian parents fall under the order, even though Micronesians have every right to live and work in the U.S. under a 1986 treaty. That treaty constituted a small reparation after the U.S. tested atomic weapons on Micronesia for more than a decade. Oh yeah, so these were the handful of islands that we just nuked to hell, and then I've watched the whole documentary about this. We had to like forcibly evacuate huge swaths of certain islands and basically tell people, sorry, we made your house radioactive. Lol. Here's you got to move now, or you're gonna die in a few days. Sorry about that. And so I guess as like a small reparation, as a small payback to that, we gave them sort of like not full U.S. citizenship, but we gave them like visa protection and right to come in and work and live here. That seems completely reasonable considering what we did. And the idea that we would take it away seems crazy. There's also we're talking about so few people, right? There aren't like tens of millions of Micronesians trying to flood our borders, whatever, right? We're probably talking like a couple thousand people at most. How will the federal government know whether a baby's parents have lawful but temporary status, rendering the child ineligible for citizenship? The USCIS does not say, but there is only one possibility. The government will begin to demand to see every parent's legal status before acknowledging their child as a U.S. citizen. Only babies with at least one parent who is a citizen or green card holder will be recognized as American. All others will be excluded at birth. Curiously, USCIS proposed a compromise for children of parents with lawful but temporary status. These kids, the memo says, could inherit the legal status of a parent, and the agency would propose to defer immigration enforcement against such children until the details are ironed out. But no federal law allows the government to devise a new legal regime in which, say, a work visa is automatically passed down to a newborn. That, of course, is because children born to immigrants have received birthright citizenship for 157 years. The Trump administration cannot conceal the damage of its constitutional betrayal by twisting other federal statutes to fill the gap. The regime outlined in Friday's memo is not just legally and morally abhorrent, it is a logistical nightmare that would, in practice, require grotesque federal intrusion into the privacy of birth. One benefit of birthright citizenship is its egalitarian simplicity. The only thing most people need to prove that they're American is a birth certificate. Those lucky enough to be born here receive equality under the law from their very first breath. Trump seeks to replace that system with a caste-based vision of national identity in which every parent must provide documentation to secure their children's fundamental rights. This system would put ICE agents in maternity wards and babies on deportation flights. It would also trip up millions of American citizens who lack the papers to prove that they belong here. Try as it might, the government cannot cover up these horrors with bureaucratic legalese. This is one of those things where, like, if you were acting in good faith, if I tried to put myself in their shoes and steelman them and act in good faith, I would be so concerned about the optics of all of this, about the PR of all of this, right? I would be terrified about stories exactly like this coming out and fear-mongering about, newborn children, 1-week-old children getting removed from their parents and deported from the country. I would be terrified of PR like that because it could seek to completely undermine all of the good faith efforts that you're making. But as this administration has consistently shown after issue, they aren't really terribly interested in the PR of it unless it gets to a certain really, really bad threshold. They mostly don't care about the PR of it. And because they're not interested in it from like a good faith perspective, everything about this administration is pure cynicism, is pure nihilism. I can't even think of like a really good steelman argument for revoking birthright citizenship, right? I mean, there are instances where people manipulate the system in order to get birthright citizenship. They also manipulate the whole marriage system, right? How if you like marry somebody who's a foreigner, they can like much quicker get citizenship or they have a right to apply for citizenship or whatever. Yes, there are certainly people that game those systems. And we have a system in place to sort of weed out those that are gaming the systems and punish them accordingly. We somewhat regularly, I don't know how often, but we have over the past however many decades deported hundreds, if not thousands of people that have come here exactly for that reason, to game the system. And we have proved it in court that that's what they're doing and then deported them, sent them on their way, said, bye-bye, you can't game our system, get out of here, okay? We already do that. So So like the idea, if you tried to present the argument that people are using this system to like game the system and people who should not be citizens are making their way into the United States and becoming United States citizens, then you would want to expand the system by which you weed these people out, right? You wouldn't want to like start excluding large swaths of people for no reason. It just seems strange to me because this isn't really even an immigration issue, right? Like if you were interested, if you genuinely believe that like, oh, there's tens of millions of people coming across the border and that's too many and our country can't handle all this many people, yada, 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 then you would address the immigration and the people coming across illegally, right? You wouldn't start changing the rules for people who are here legally, and also the vast majority of people are not sneaking into gaming the system in this sort of way, right? But like, this is just like not a terribly large group of people. Like it won't make a significant dent in the immigration numbers. And like, it just seems weird. I can't really think of a good reason for it other than like cynical reasons, other than like just blatant weird xenophobia, weird racism. The fact that they don't care about PR and that they aren't doing this in a way that I would imagine a good faith actor would do makes me want to lean towards more cynical reasons like racism, xenophobia, and whatnot. This just seems like a strange decision. I just don't know why this is the kind of decision that like I feel like only creates bad PR. The tangible benefits are basically non-existent. And all that I could see coming from all of this is negative PR, right? I mean, I guess there are some people that read this kind of article and think it's a good thing, but like I would think the vast majority of people, 90+% of people, the people that you want to be catering towards, see this as a bad thing, see this as bad PR.